delayed raise hand on Zoom. I don't want to pull the proclamation, but I'm hoping that the proclamation can be friendly amended through this process to remove the phrase "and other relevant bodies" from the last furthermore of who gets sent the proclamation, because that is so vague that it doesn't really help our
Yes.
clerk to know who to send it to.
And this is the Dalai Lama.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes, the proclamation honoring the life and legacy of His Holiness.
As one of the sponsors, I have no problem with that. I did try to make certain edits. I did not catch that one. Pat?
Other ones were made and have
And are
changes in our
amended.
document, so, yeah.
Yeah, because it listed who the clerk should be sent.
There's a whole list, and then it just says at the end of that list, "and other relevant bodies," which is very
Yeah,
vague,
can read.
and I don't know what Athena would do with that, frankly.
It shouldn't be there. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Then we'll move on to the vote. Pat DeAngelis?
Was there a second?
I'll
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry. Thank you. Second. Yes. There's a second. Any other questions or comments? Pat DeAngelis?
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier?
Aye.
Counselor Ette? Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke?
Aye.
Bob Hegner?
Aye.
Counselor Lord?
Aye.
Pam Rooney?
Yes.
Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
Kathy Shane?
Yes.
Andy Steinberg?
Aye.
Jennifer Taub?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
We're going to quickly go to those resolutions. The very first one, Pat. Yes, just give me a moment. Okay. Now therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Amherst and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby honors the life and legacy of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, acknowledges the period from July 6, 2025 to July 5th, 2026 as the Year of Compassion in honor of his 90th birthday, and proclaims June 6, 2025, the 90th birthday of His Holiness as the Day of Compassion. Furthermore, that the Town Council of the Town of Amherst in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts recognize this proclamation by raising the Tibetan national flag on July 6, 2025, outside the town hall for a period of 2 weeks, and that an official copy of the proclamation be sent to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Central Tibetan Administration, the Office of Tibet in Washington, D.C., the President of the United States, Donald Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, period. Okay. We're going to move on to the next one, which is the citation for Alana Taxidermelendez. And I will read that now. Therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby recognize and congratulate Alana Taxidermelendez on the receipt of the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce Cooley Dickinson Hospital Scholarship, and we wish her continued academic and professional success. Counselor Haneke, you're next.
Thank you. On Friday, Councilor Ryan, President Griesemer, and I had the privilege to present this citation pre-passage because it was the mixed ultimate teams, which is the middle school's ultimate teams family day, and their sort of season celebration. And they won the middle school state tournament. So it was a very nice event, and we are thankful to be able to recognize them. So it says, now therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of Amherst, do hereby recognize and congratulate the Amherst Pelham Regional Middle School 2025 Ultimate Team on their accomplishment of winning the Massachusetts Middle School States Tournament, and wish each of them continued athletic and academic success.
And the citation in recognition of the high school ultimate team.
Yep.
Counselor Haneke.
Getting there. So this one, our high school girls ultimate team, I think it's also called the GX Ultimate Team in USA Ultimate language, competed at nationals this year, this weekend actually in Pennsylvania after winning the Division I state championship. And they will receive their citation this Wednesday at their team dinner. I do not have a location yet, so when I do, I will send it off to anyone who wants to join us for that. It will be somewhere in Amherst. They finished 5th at nationals after being seeded 10th. So now therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of Amherst, do hereby recognize and congratulate the Amherst Pelham Regional High School 2025 Girls Ultimate Team on their accomplishment of winning the USA Ultimate Massachusetts Division I State Championship and finishing 5th at the High School National Invitational, and wish each of them continued athletic and academic success.
Thank you. And thanks all who participated and helped make the celebration of the groundbreaking for the track today possible. It was a very well-attended event and joyous occasion. To approve appropriate, so we're moving on to action items. The first is the adoption of FY26 budget. I'm going to make a motion, seek a second. We'll then move to reports from the Finance Committee. I want to just point out that is she still here? Okay, I'm sorry. Our, well, I guess she's a consultant at this point. Hello, Melissa. Melissa has joined us for this evening. The motion is to approve appropriation and transfer order FY26-04, an order appropriating the Town of Amherst operating budget for fiscal year 2026 as shown on page 16 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Shane seconds.
Thank you. Kathy, would you please move forward with the Finance Committee report, i.e. a summary thereof? May I say the outstanding Finance Committee report? Thorough Finance Committee
Well,
report.
thank you very much for that. For people who took the time to read it, it's over 20 pages. So I will do what I consider to be the shortest summary. There is a 3-page executive summary, which in itself is on the long side. But overall, and I'm just going to read some of the words because we're very much a committee working on this together. Overall, the Finance Committee finds that the town manager's proposed balanced budget for FY26 adheres to guidance provided by the council as amended. The budget provides 4% increase in municipal and library budgets to enable a 4.8% increase in the appropriation for the regional school. The budget reduces the allocation to capital. To enable a 5% increase for the elementary school, the budget draws on cash reserves, one-time funds to increase the FY26 budget from 4 to 5% with the provision that our understanding is that this would be one-time funding. This budget required difficult choices by the town, school, and library, including reductions in staff. And when it came to the town, these were mainly reductions in open positions. The sharp increase in health insurance, in addition to increases in wages and cost of operation, required staff adjustments to bring expenses in line with projected FY26 revenues. To put it bluntly, our expenses are going up faster than our revenues, and we can't have to have a balanced budget. So it was a difficult decision. In the municipal budget, the only way to stay within the 4% increase had to freeze department supply and material budgets and reduced the departments across the board by 6.4% reduction in staff, 4 in public safety, as you heard from public comments, 2 of those requests, 1 police, 1 fire, a reduction of 1 in DPW, and a reduction of 1 in finance. And for those of you who are worried about potholes, we were told there's 1 person doing potholes right now due to vacancies in staff. So all of this staffing were difficult. Sustaining valued services within tight budgets proposed for FY26 is going to be a challenge across the board. We heard about stress in our schools, but throughout our meetings with municipal departments, we heard concerns about staffing frequent turnover, vacancies leading to overtime, and staff stress. With expense budgets not keeping up with inflation, people are juggling. If there's a vacant position, they may have to draw on the salary for that vacant position just to buy supplies. Managing this has required our staff to find ways to collaborate, juggle priorities, worry about competing demands, and a willingness to work overtime. Coming to the conclusion, we give several trends in the executive summary that says this is not going to go away, and the reasons we are ever more dependent on our property tax are that the state funds for us have basically been flat. The Finance Committee reviewed all the major departments and had discussions with all of them. We find that it is supportive of policy goals despite the staffing concern. Therefore, overall, we recommend that the council approve the budget as presented. And we took 4 votes. One vote was on the overall operating budget, a second was on the capital budget, a third was a part of the capital budget that requires debt authorization, and the final was to recommend that the council approve an order creating a revolving fund for the aquatics program. And Lynn, I won't go into the details on those. With the exception of the vote on the operating budget, all the votes were unanimous. On the operating budget, there were two members of the committee that voted against it. One was based on the concern about one-time use of free cash, violating our own policies of trying not to do that. We can't do that over time. And the other was concerned about CRES. I just want to end with not a particularly cheery note, but it's what we were all looking at as we think FY27 is going to be worse. What we just went through, it's not just likely more difficult, it will be more difficult. What's happening at the federal level is going to impact what the state has in its own funds. So where this year, we're able to get to a 4% revenue increase, we might not be able to get to that next year. And meanwhile, salary increases, health insurance increases, pension increases. We had a very low pension increase this year, and it's expected to go back up. And by low, I mean 2%, and it may go back up into 7%. So the potential loss of federal funds has the state worried, and that should have all municipal governments worried. We cannot have expenses going up faster than our revenues. That is not sustainable. So looking ahead, we think is going to be even more difficult, but I think on balance, the town manager has done a very good job of balancing the competing needs. And in fact, the council gave early guidance on the schools, which led to the increase beyond 4%, and we appreciate him finding a way to do that. And I just want to make the one comment. The reduction in the municipal budget had nothing to do with the extra money for schools. We would have had to do that to live within 4%. This is a stress point across the board. And I think I'll end with that. I don't know whether any other finance committee member would like to. Yes. So I just wanted to emphasize that for the town municipal budget, and that's police, fire, roads, DPW, finance, to live within a 4% increase meant the reduction in staff, because with health insurance up 14% and wages, so it had nothing, it wasn't that money was shifted over. That's why we had to find money out of capital and money out of cash reserves for the schools to be able to go up by more than 4%. Is that clear? Yeah, thank you. And so I'll end with that, and it's a fairly long report, but what we tried to do is capture the discussions we had with each department, and to the extent we could, not repeat what's in the budget book itself, which was a very data-intense budget book, and I recommend it as maybe not nighttime reading, but daytime reading when everyone is awake. Thank you.
Are there other comments from the Finance Committee? So I want to begin with comments that getting to this budget this year, as Councillor Hannah, Councillor Shane has pointed out, first of all, the Finance Committee did a marvelous job of talking with every one of our departments, taking an unprecedented amount of time, preparing questions and so forth. And we want to thank you for that. It's the one time each year that I think we have an opportunity for counselors to engage with department heads in a way that allows them to speak much more clearly about their budgets. This budget, this budget's difficult, but Councillor Shane has already said the road ahead is going to be a lot tighter. So even though I didn't do a written president's report, we did have a meeting this week with Senator Comerford and Representative Dom, and they're gone into the conference committee. We are very fortunate that Senator Comerford is on the conference committee, and we need to be making sure they hear from us about those things that we care about. When the House submitted their budget, it was before they knew of the declining revenues. So when the Senate submitted their budget, it was lower, which is unusual. Usually the Senate budget is higher. And when they go into the conference committee, they're going in not knowing what is going to come out of the big, beautiful bill in Washington. And yet they have to pass a budget by the end of June. So as we move into this next year, what I think we can all anticipate is the following. There may be mid-year rescissions, which we have not seen the likes of since 2008. And in addition to that, discretionary money will probably be slowly let, if let at all, because it's easier to keep discretionary money back if you're going to have to do mid-year rescissions. So that's what the state budget situation looks like. And it isn't pretty. And one of the questions that I have honestly don't know the answer to in all my years of municipal finance at this point, maybe Andy does, maybe Paul does. If we take mid-year rescissions to a point do we have to go back and look at our budget mid-year? We do. Thank you. So this may be a budget we have to revisit. So in order to get to this budget, again, I want to thank the unions for getting together and addressing their benefit level. They took a serious cut and reduced it by almost 5%. I also know that departments have come in with flat operating budgets, and at the same time, we are freezing positions. We are not eliminating them, we are freezing them. Hopefully, we can sustain this budget as we go through this next year. I hate having to just say what I said because it is not a very pretty picture. So that's all I have to say. Are there other comments? I told my hand to go down, but it's not working well. Pat?
I do want to thank the Finance Committee and the Finance Department for creating this budget. I hate it, but the work has been thoughtful and as honest as you could be. I am having difficulty with the $269,704 being taken from free cash to fund the elementary schools. I have a concern on several levels. The first one is we heard tonight and we've heard before the lack of collaborative governing between the town council and the school committee. They have, it's clear that we're saying this is one time. And that's going to be disregarded. And it is a very emotional, as a former educator, I care greatly about our schools. But this money could be used elsewhere. It could be used to help some of the press. I'm
your
trying to
mind.
keep my finger on it, on many things. Um, I want to share a quick little story. I volunteer at the Survival Center on Fridays, and we've had a wonderful relationship with CRESS responders and a wonderful relationship with the Amherst Police when they've come. And it's not always for easy things that either one of them come for. Recently, because of ICE activity, a simple thing happened, but the result or the impact was very different. When the police or responders have been coming to the Survival Center, they're welcomed. People are not afraid. They keep going about what they're doing. This one Friday, since ICE raids, a police car drove in, our Amherst Police Department drove into the parking lot and parked. There was near panic and fear for most of the people outside, and they brought that panic and fear inside. So myself and several staff who really should have done it, I'm just a volunteer, went outside to try to find out what was going on because we were worried. And what the police officer was there for, he'd been called by, there was a very minor accident in the parking lot, and he was there to take an accident report. No biggie. But there was terror in the eyes of many of our members, our community members. That's why CRESS is incredibly important. So I, no matter what anybody calls me, would like to use some of the money from the school to fund CRESS because I think we need them more than we ever needed them before. And I have concerns. You know, why aren't the protocols in place? What responsibility is CRESS's and what responsibility is us? And that we have to look at that. I'm taking up a lot of time, but and there are other ways to spend that 200 and some $1,000 that would impact this budget in a positive way. So I really want us to think about what we're doing.
At this point, I'm not hearing a motion, but I also want to just make sure people understand, we can only vote to reduce the budget, okay? We cannot, and except for education, and that is the only place where we can vote to increase, okay?
Or
I'm sorry?
Of order,
Yes.
wouldn't a rearrangement of the funding, as Pat was suggesting, isn't that within the same budget? That's not lowering or increasing the budget amount?
I'm going to call on the town manager to provide a better explanation than I did.
No, so the council can decrease the overall budget, but you can't sort of line item it out like that.
Right. So the answer to your question is no.
I mean, you could certainly say what you wanted, what the purpose was for your action. Like Councilor DeAngelo said, I would want to reduce this portion. I would hope, but then if it's to put something someplace else, it would require an action from the town manager to increase it.
Okay. All right. Counselor Lord.
Thank you. I just really wanted to reiterate some of the comments around CRESS and the importance. And in the last quarter, they served 1,806 of our Amherst neighbors, and that's only working 24% of the time in a week, which would be increased to 7,224. I know there's been some issues. I'm really grateful for how Director Theriak has come in now 12 months later and really increased the presence, the newsletter, all the different ways in which we attend to our community. And it's not about optics. I know the town is not seeking to freeze it to step in line with the national movement of erasure and harm and all the DEI reductions. Right after George Floyd, everybody became more aware, it's more present and less fund all this. And now, I'm not saying this is what Amherst is doing, but it's happening at the same time as so many other organizations and communities are even punishing people for still having DEI, people losing jobs. I've had many friends lose positions and or be threatened. So I just want to say I'm against the freezing of these positions in the budget. I really believe we need to increase the CREST presence because it's really gaining momentum and doing great things. ICE is more around, people are losing, getting eviction notices, jobs, everything is just increasing. And our Amherst neighbors, residents, constituents, all of us need more support, love, and guidance from, if we could do it from the town, the municipal, yay, CREST. They also work with the APD and the AFD. There was a couple times they went out and supported that. So it's also not like an anti-police thing. It's just another way to support our community and really help people that are suffering. And then I just want to say, I know we're looking at a worse situation next year, but I have learned that Massachusetts is what you call a donor state. We give far more in federal money, taxes to the federal than we get back. There's a report by Axios and a few other things. So we might, as a state, if we lose more funding and more funding, Janet Mills in Maine has suggested have to be creative with how can we not give so much of our federal money so we can fund our schools and our potholes and our programs. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Ete.
So in 8A, which is the chair's report on votes for the FY26 operating budget, there's a section on the elementary school that says one-time funding using cash reserves of $269,704. The intention is that this will not be part of the base for FY27. The expectation is that there will be savings when the number of schools is reduced from 3 to 2, including utility costs in the net zero new school. Based on this language and based on some of the things that we've heard, it appears that regardless of our intention or expectation, that is not the way this one-time amount is being viewed. So I'm wondering what will happen next year if it turns out that this is going to be part of the base. Do we return back to what has been written in some of the documents and some of what we've said? Or that is, for next year, what are we going to do since this is a one-time thing for this year?
Thank you. Andy? Andy, yes, I'm sorry. Maybe the mic isn't working now either.
Yeah,
Maybe it's my
thank you.
voice.
I guess that I wanted to begin my comments by thanking the town manager who really had a very difficult task, which was to try and even propose a budget that would satisfy a number of competing demands with inadequate funding to meet those demands. And he had to make some difficult decisions, and I appreciated the fact that he did so thoughtfully. One of the things that, of course, we've talked about and are talking about quite a bit is the freezing of positions. And it's never an easy thing to propose. But the other way I wanted to offer was having sat through the meetings with the department heads where they were describing the challenges that they are going to have to deal with. And none of them said, we're not going to deal with it. They all said, you know, this is what it means, but we've got to go there. But it's not easy. And we talk about Cress, and I feel very badly and have been reading and listening to everything that has been said about Cress. But Cress was just one of the many departments that we've heard about. I think Cress and the schools are the ones we hear about the most. Are we hearing about the fire department and the question of whether there's adequate staffing to cover the shifts, and what are the sacrifices that we're asking our firefighters to do in order to work the extra hours in sometimes overtime or being called in to when there's an emergency, and they weren't prepared to do so, and they're already exhausted from what they've been doing already in what is a very difficult full-time job. And one of the observations that we heard from the leadership in the department, and this is not just the fire department, I'm using it as an example, is that it makes it difficult also in recruitment, that when we compete with other communities, as we are for a limited number of people who are willing to take public safety jobs regardless of the public safety area, that there's that people who have the opportunity to do the work they want to do and not be placed in the kind of demand situation that we're placing our firefighters in, that's a competition that may cause us to lose good candidates. So while I'm concerned about Crest, and I think we need to look very closely at the department and count on the town manager to lead us in an evaluation of it. I think that we do need to recognize that there are other competing demands from the other departments, not demands in the demand of, I want the money, but the demands of, this is going to really hurt our ability to serve the community. And I just, in that, I'll close on the subject by saying that the police, for the most part, have only 3 cars on the road at one time. And a lot of things can happen, and they not only have to cover an entire town, but they have to back each other up because it is frequently dangerous for all involved. And that includes the police officers themselves, the residents, and the people who they're intervening with, if there's inadequate coverage to provide the safety that's required. So I think that I urge you to really carefully consider that the demands that are being placed on our departments, whether it be public safety or the finance department or DPW, that they all have consequences, and the consequences are for the community, and the consequences are for the people who are working in the department, and for the town as a whole. So in the last thing I just want to say is that from my work on the MMA Fiscal Policy Committee, this is a real problem that is affecting all communities. And I urge us to recognize that as we read the newspaper and look at other communities, to remember we're dealing with a difficult situation. It's not a difficult situation that's of our making. It's just something that is happening in government right now. I think that, which is why the chair of the committee made the warning she did about next year. Thank you.
Counselor Haneke?
So I have a motion to amend, but I'm happy to make that after the other counselors in line speak, since once you make a motion to amend, conversation is stuck to that motion.
Okay, so I'll come back to you. Okay. Jennifer Taub?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, ask a question in response to Counselor Ete's comment about the free cash for the schools. I didn't hear the chair of the elementary school committee saying that she didn't accept that that wouldn't be part of the base next year. She was just saying the school committee will present the budget according to their needs, and then the council will respond with what is within our budget to fund. So I would not, like many of you, I feel kind of ill. I mean, it's about, it's the ultimate taking, I don't know, from Peter to give to Paul about the CRES having to freeze positions. But I wouldn't want to see the free cash that we've appropriated to the schools go anyplace else. I mean, we're not even coming close to level funding the schools. So I think it's very important whether or not the committee says it says the words we want them to hear. I think we need to keep that free cash in place for our schools. I also wanted to ask, when the budget first came out and there were 4 frozen, positions that we were going to leave unfilled for the coming fiscal year because we had a $500,000 deficit in the municipal budget. I don't think I realized that the implementation manager at CRES, which I know isn't part of our funding, would also, do we know that won't be refunded next year? Did the grant run out and we know that there is no more funding, that LEAP does not have any more funding for us to reapply?
Paul, do you want to speak to that? I
Sure.
can also share what Senator Comerford said the other day, too.
So yeah, I mean, I think the
Okay.
grant did run out, and the position was grant implementation manager. So no grant, there's nothing to implement, basically.
However, Senator Comerford has placed in the Senate budget money for both Amherst and Northampton that has to make it through conference committee. Unfortunately, it also has to make it through the governor, who has never put those line items in her budget, so often is inclined to defeat them. But there is money at this point in the Senate budget as it goes to conference committee for both Amherst and Northampton that would be like the grant money that we've had in the past. So we're going to wait and see.
So, yeah, okay. So I also, this is a little from the point, but I feel like as long as I've been on the council, in, regular town manager reports, it's stated that the police department is working on dispatch protocols. It does seem like a long time to be working on the protocols. Like, I'm coming to the end of my second council term. So if that is impacting, and if it's impacting CRES and any of our decisions about filling positions, that's troublesome.
Kathy Shane?
I'll just make a couple comments actually in responding or providing whatever other information I have on the schools. I think the thinking was this is bridge money. The 3 schools right now are operating, I would call, but not 3, but 2 of them are operating inefficiently because they had these big wide open spaces and really aging heating, air conditioning, so the utility costs are much higher than we expect the new school to. So the hope is that operating two rather than three, the operating costs will be lower. So I've always thought of this as just a bridge, but the school committee voted out a 6%. This is not even a 6%. This is a 5%. So there has been an increase in staff over the last 5 years. There's not been decreases in staff each year. So that's one of the things we went back and looked at. The staffing levels are up. So it was an effort to soften the transition as they wrestle with what's going to happen with the sixth grade. So I think it's important to keep that money there. I too am uncomfortable. We can't fund operating budgets out of free cash and reserves. So whatever it's perceived of, Jennifer, they're going to start with an FY26 base that has that money in it, just the way the regional school did. We're going to start with it not in it. So we'll have a $270,000 gap on what we think the starting point is. So that's just a point. And just when, as everyone knows, I've been chair of the school building committee since the beginning. And one of the things with the earlier superintendent, we actually had to, for MSBA, go through the staffing of all the schools and focused on Wildwood and Fort River. And we went line by line through, will you need two principals or one when you go from two schools to one? Will you need X of these? And so he just worked through each line, and the answer was classroom teachers. We're going to have probably the same classroom teachers. We're still going to have a music, but it came up with fewer staff, and then the big savings, it's a net zero school. So there will not be an electricity bill and there won't be a fuel bill in this school. And that, when we were looking at it, was $250,000 of utility costs. So that was the basis early on of saying going from 3 to 2 could operate at a lower amount, but they're not operating either of those worlds right now. The schools are quite big, wide open spaces, not well heated, not well air conditioned. So then the flip, Jennifer, one of the things we heard at a District 1 meeting when we invited the then new director of CRES in was she came in and she discovered that there weren't standard operating procedures for the staff, and you need those to get to discharge, to who's going to be handling what. So there was some catch-up work that she was doing along with the implementation director to get to what is it we can handle. And so I think the hope is this will all get sped up with dispatch, but it was a real eye opener when we went through the list of what the police calls are getting on. Could that call first go to CRES? And the answer on almost all of them was no. It might be able to go to a team, to one police, one CRES, but we don't know what we're going to find on the other end in a mental health. And this was not just from the police saying it, was from CRES saying it. We need to know what situation, which is different than the assisting at the survival center, going over, but it's like a call for help comes in. So they said, and we so far have not been operating with, except the police have a contract someone's paid for as a co-responder who's a clinical social worker who does go out with them and handles calls. They're based, it's not a CRES person, it's another person, but it is a social worker. So that model is working embedded within the police department. So we heard a lot of interesting pieces of information on maybe we should be thinking of how to make this all work better, was what the finance committee was hearing in those discussions. So it's a freezing of open positions. The turnover has been so high that we keep having open positions, which is generating surpluses at the end of the year because we didn't spend the money. So I just want to address those two. I think there is a real need for the bridge for the elementary school. But I think it is at best a bridge. And I know Mandy, that was one of her concerns about the operating budget, having that money in it at all.
Okay. I'm going to go Counselor Walker and Counselor Ete. I just want to mention, if there's anybody on Zoom or in the audience that is here with regard to Paley Village, that item is being postponed until the 30th. I'm sorry if we've inconvenienced you, and we hope to see you again. So, Counselor Walker?
Thank you, Len. I just wanted to take a minute to express my very strong support for the Crest Department. Freezing their positions is not just simply a budgetary decision. It's a direct blow to the safety and well-being of people in our community. Crest provides critical, life-affirming services to residents who have been historically underserved. And we are in the midst of a national crisis. People are afraid. They're afraid to go to work, to school, to the grocery store, and marginalized communities in particular are not safe. They know they are not safe. We know that they are not safe. And so in this political climate, cutting or freezing community safety services is not just irresponsible, it's also dangerous. And so I want to be really clear about this. It's just a pause, it's just a freeze, when there is no concrete plan to restore these positions. So we've also had a lot of conversation about how difficult we expect future budgets to be, particularly next year's budget. And so considering those things, and I did ask this during the Finance Committee discussion, there is no plan to restore these frozen positions, right? This is not, we're going to freeze it, evaluate, and restore these positions. This is a completely different conversation that we're having. We're talking about freezing these positions indefinitely because there is no plan to restore these positions. And if there was, we should have one now, considering how constrained we are in terms of budgetary action in the future. I also think it's important to mention that all, if not many of us, campaigned saying that we supported the Crest Department. This is something that all of us have talked about openly. And I think that we might need to do a little bit of self-reflection in terms of what support actually means. Like, what does it mean to say that you support the Crest Department? And I think we need to turn some of those words into action tonight. Some of the things that stuck out to me during the Finance Committee meeting where we discussed public safety services in this town were, again, the protocols, because why is Crest not able to take calls from dispatch, right? I think this is very concerning for a lot of people, considering that Crest is supposed to be an alternative safety service, and therefore they're supposed to be able to get calls through dispatch. It appeared to be very clear to me during the meeting that Crest did attempt to put together these protocols for dispatch very early on, and that the process for implementing these protocols would be to have them approved by the town attorney, and then they can move forward to implementation. However, the first batch of protocols that were completed by the Crest director were handed over to the APD for review, and the APD never allowed them to even make it to the legal team for review. And so I think that this is it's a much larger problem, right? Like, we are creating a new department without protocols, without standard operating procedures. I feel like this is unprecedented. When do we create new departments and very explicitly set them up for failure? How did we expect this department to proceed without some of these very basic procedures? We understaffed them. We underfunded them from the beginning. We have never allowed them to be open the full around-the-clock hours where we know that people need these critical services. And so how are we even able to give an adequate evaluation of the department? And if we are going to freeze and then evaluate, are we then saying that based off of the evaluation, there is a possibility that we will discover that these positions need to be restored? And if that is the case, do we have a plan to be able to do so? And I think that the answer to all of those questions are no. And so it feels slightly frustrating to me as somebody who has heard community members speak so honestly about some of the horrific experiences that they have had in this town and who have been able to express, even though they are afraid of retaliation, like some of the things that they have been through, and for us to really make a commitment and to, I think somebody during public comment read some of the resolutions that we have put forth saying that, we hear you and we are going to there is actions that we can take as a council to make sure that you are safe in this town. And we are peddling those actions back without even fully investing and trying it out. And some additional frustration I have is that, again, I was on the CSWG, and so I know that the Crest Department never actually came close to the original recommendation. And I know I have heard countless times from other counselors that just because that's what we recommended doesn't mean that's what's going to work. But look, what we did also didn't work. And we never even tried what was recommended. And so were we better off starting off this way? I don't necessarily think so. And so it's a very frustrating position to be in, but as a council, we do have some actions we can take. We can refuse to accept a budget that doesn't adequately protect our community and serve our community. And Crest was built to reimagine public safety and to serve people in this town in a way that traditional systems have failed to do historically and are continuing to fail to do. And this is not nearly a new symptom of what is happening at the national level in terms of immigration. This has been happening before this. It's just exacerbated now. And so it feels even more critical than it already was critical before. And so I really urge the council to stand on the side of justice, equity, and community care, and to not vote to accept this budget and to freeze the Crest positions, because this will have a lasting impact on our community members. And again, it's a dangerous situation to be in for some people in our community.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Ete, you had your hand up and took it down. I just want to check because of the technology that's going on. Counselor Haneke.
This is a difficult motion to amend for me to make, and I've struggled with whether to make it. We'll see if it gets a second. To amend the motion by adding the phrase, as amended, by removing the phrase transfer 269,704 from free cash, changing the number 87,102,344 to 86,832,640, and in the chart, reducing the other financing sources for the elementary schools to 0, reducing total other financing sources to 75,000, reducing the total for elementary schools to 28,049,236, and reducing the total budget to 86,832,640 to the end of the motion.
So the motion, as Counselor Haneke has proposed as an amendment, is now on the screen. Please check to make sure that motion is fully incorporated. And meantime, I seek a second. I need a second.
If there's a second.
I will second.
Okay, it's seconded. Now we'll go back to Counselor Haneke.
So that motion was a long way of wording, removing spending free cash on the budget, and reducing the elementary schools budget by the exact amount that was proposed of using free cash. Councillor Shane stated a lot of what I've struggled with this budget and what to do with the free cash proposal. The council believes there should be efficiency and/or operational savings when the new school opens in FY27, and that the proposed free cash has been referenced to be a bridge to getting to that savings for money that, if the school was already opened, would not necessarily be needed for either operational or efficiency savings. But in response to multiple questions asked in multiple ways, seeking assurances, specific or not, or general, that there would be at least $269,704 in operational or efficiency savings in a budget of $28 million from the opening of a new net zero school. The Finance Committee did not receive those assurances. In fact, multiple finance members during conversation construed the responses we received as basically stating there would not be operational or efficiency savings when the new school opens. And so if the district can't give us those basic assurances 1 year from the slated opening of that school, then I am troubled in referencing the free cash money as bridge money versus just using free cash for operations. And if it's not bridge money, then it actually violates our financial policies, because our financial policies say do not use free cash for ongoing operational savings. If I was assured and felt that the school district believed there would be operational or efficiency savings when the new school opens, then I would be much less troubled with spending some free cash money to help their operating budget in FY26, because then I would truly believe that it's bridge money. But through many questions, I did not get those assurances. And I hate the idea of reducing the elementary school budget, but I also do not believe we should actively violate our financial policies about using one-time money for operational ongoing costs. And so that is why I make this motion, so that we can have that discussion. And also those of us that are struggling like I am can at least put on the record our views about using whether this money is actually bridge money or not.
Motion's been made and seconded. Anna? The conversation at this point is strictly to this motion.
Yes,
Anna?
this is a one-time use, an appropriate one-time use. And oh my gosh, we use free cash for ongoing operational funds all the time when we do things like increasing paving budgets. I don't feel that it's fair to suddenly nitpick the use of funds here. We know that the schools are going to apply for the money, not apply, they're going to submit a budget for the funds that they need in order to operate the schools at the level they feel is appropriate, regardless of what we do. We cannot punish the children in our schools for the lack of communication from adults. That is not fair. This is a very reasonable and appropriate use of funds. And I'm a bit astounded by where this turn has taken, the turn that this has taken. There we go. Because this does feel it's so clearly one time. It's so clearly bridge. It's not going to be there next year because the new school will be there. So for me, I'm really struggling as to why we would seemingly, it appears to me, take this funding away because we didn't get the answer we liked, or an answer presented in the way that we liked. And I don't think that that is fair for the students in our schools, the teachers in our schools, the parents who send their kids to our schools. I would urge folks to not support the motion to amend.
Kathy Shane?
I'm just going to second what Anna said. We, the council and the town manager, will have a fresh look at the budget next year. We also heard from the finance director of the school. She's going to have to start from scratch because it's going to be a whole new budget with 2 schools. So one of the things about starting from scratch is you don't have to talk about reductions in staff. You can say, this is the staff we need for these 2 schools. You can just start again. I think it's important to include this money for multiple reasons, including the council asked and we voted on it. And I realized, Mandy, you voted against it when we voted on it, but to target 5%. And the town manager responded, and we voted a large majority voted for going to 5. And we have now had a budget since May 1st or 2nd. We got it on the 1st. Finance got on the 6th with this in it. So I cannot support taking it out. I think it's going to be tough to live within 5%. I don't think this is an easy budget. I think it's a tight budget. The schools, when you look at all the pieces of it, have what we were hearing in the other departments. They've got rising costs for supplies. They've got a big health insurance increase. They're in the middle of really tough negotiations with the union. So I think it is, for all sorts of reasons, important to leave this in. And I don't think, I'm not feeling certain policies are inviolate. When we need to do something, we do it. Years ago, we did a temporary bridge down on Station Road because the neighborhoods felt they needed that particular bridge, and we pulled money. So I think there are times when we have to do this, but I do think we're going to have to stay firm next year.
Counselor Lord?
Thank you. First, I want to apologize for being remiss earlier in my comment. I do want to thank the financial department, our town manager, and the financial committee for the hours and the labor that went into a really, really difficult task. So I apologize for not thanking you earlier. I will be voting no on this amendment. I believe that our schools they're not getting all that they need. They're struggling with what they are getting, and we're just giving all that we can, this one-time free cash. So I'm just letting it be known that I will be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be voting no for this because back in March, we said, and we asked the town manager to present a budget for the elementary school up to 5%. And we, at that time, talked about using free cash for the purposes of this bridge period. I don't change my mind on this at this time, and that's why I'm voting no. Councillor Rooney?
Thank you. I do empathize with the frustration and lack of clarity in the school budget when our finance committee goes through with a fine-tooth comb on the town side, and the school budget makes up such a large portion of the town's tax base, or whatever. But I do want to believe that this money as a bridge will help the transition for the sixth grade. I'd like to hold them to it. And for that reason, I'm not going to be able to support, although I sympathize, this motion.
Councillor Ette?
I think this discussion shows why it is critical now more than ever for the council and the school committee and the school superintendent to find some neutral ground. This isn't the ground for that kind of conversation. And this may not be the action that would make that ground possible to be on. I think regardless of what our expectation is about the free cash amounts, when it comes to next year, we can simply stand on the fact that we gave that free cash one time. And that is something that we can speak about regardless of whether there is some kind of concurrence or support from the schools. I think this is an action that we can take by ourselves regardless of what the committee may have to say about that.
Motion's been made and seconded, and we're going to move to a vote. If you vote to amend the budget by not using free cash, you will vote aye. If you vote not to amend the budget, you will vote nay. Okay? This is only on the vote with regard to the amendment. Anna Devlin Gauthier.
No.
Councillor Ette.
Nay.
Lynn Griesmer's nay. Councillor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hagner.
Nay.
Councillor Lord.
Nay.
Pam Rooney.
No.
Counselor Ryan,
Nay.
Kathy Shane,
No.
Andy Steinberg,
No.
Jennifer Taub,
No.
Counselor Walker,
No.
Pat DeAngelis.
No.
The motion fails. We return to the original motion. The original motion is to approve the budget as presented. Are there any more questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to start the vote with Counselor Ette. Voting aye means approval of the budget.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Nay.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
No.
Pat DeAngelis,
No.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
The budget passes with 10 in favor and 3 opposed. I'm going to do this one next thing, and actually, since we've talked about all the others, let's quickly get them done and then take a break. To approve council approval order. I don't think that's the right word. FY 26-23, an order creating a revolving fund for aquatics programs under Mass General Law 44, Section 53E 1/2, as shown on page 17 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments on this? Pam Rooney.
I was curious because this program was, well, it was not written up as part of the rec description. And so I'm curious if somebody could explain why, where the income is expected to come from that goes into this fund, and why is it not simply included in the rec budget?
Melissa is joining us in order to give you an explanation. Hello,
Is this on?
please.
Okay. So the aquatics department has existed as a revolving fund for a number of years here in the town of Amherst. And that program is very popular in town and fairly successful. And we have the fortunate opportunity that we have an aquatics director that would like to expand that program. That program is self-supporting for the programs that it runs, and some of the programs that it runs, have, I'm not sure what the right word is, but like they're scholarships. So it's fully accessible to the community, but it also is popular enough as a recreational option for people who can support it to support itself. And the reason that so it's always been involved in the collective recreational revolving funds that you see at the back of the budget book. We are asking for this particular program to be pulled outside and stand alone, because in order to expand the program and to have full-time staff paid from the grant, you have to create a grant under 4453E1/2. The grant that it was previously operating under did not allow for full-time staff. And so that is the reason that it's being presented this way. And it's not part of the recreational budget, because it is it generates enough income to support the program.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're going to move to a vote. Begin with myself. Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Yeah. Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Okay. The next one is to approve appropriation and transfer order FY 26-05A, an order appropriating funds for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Improvement Program, equipment, buildings, and facilities for fiscal year 2026, as shown on page 18 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Shane seconds.
Are there any questions or comments? Counselor Haneke?
I didn't have a question or comment on this one. Before we moved on to item B on action item, though, I put my hand up wondering when the motion on the letter that the Finance Committee recommended, since it's most appropriate under action item A, should be taken up. It did not make it onto the motion sheet.
It also didn't make it on the agenda. And so it would have to wait until next meeting.
Will it be on next meeting's agenda
Yes.
then? Okay.
Yep. Thank you for that question to clarify and the opportunity to clarify. Um, So, Pam Rooney.
In looking at the amount of the financial order, of the $7.8 million to raise and appropriate, does this particular budget include the roughly 1.8 or $2 million of Jones debt that will occur in FY '26? Meaning that there would be 2.8 actually available for other uses.
So there were funds borrowed in the last month or so for the Jones Library. So the first debt payment is, I think, included in the forecast for that. Yeah, so the debt, I don't remember the specifics, but it should be in the detail, but we borrowed funds in the spring for the library. So the first debt payment will have to be made in, I believe it's March 27th. So both the interest and the principal on that one-year debt, and it was around $2.7 million, I think we borrowed. And so that payment is in the debt forecast, but the bulk of the project has not, because it hasn't really kicked off yet, will be borrowed, and then the larger payments will be in the debt forecast.
Okay, did that answer your question? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Then we'll move to a vote. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Aye.
Counselor Shane. I'm sorry, Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Yes.
Jennifer Todd.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
And Lynn Griesmer is an aye. That is unanimous. And the final one is to approve appropriation and transfer order FY 26-06A, an order approving authorizing borrowing to fund capital projects bond authorization as shown on page 19 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Pam, did you have your hand up? Okay. Okay. It'll go down whenever it wants to, given the technology tonight. Then we're going to move to a vote. Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Alicia Walker.
Yes.
I think that was a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Counselor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right.
Lynn, Lynn?
We are, yes.
over here. Paul,
Oops. Yes,
can I
Paul.
just say something first, thank the council for your actions tonight. That's really important for us to move forward for our next year's budget. I also want to recognize the team that really put this together, which is Holly Drake, who's here tonight, Jen LaFountain, Athena O'Keefe, and especially Melissa, who keeps coming back and helping us out throughout this entire process with the finance committee and through this entire process, for everybody. So they put a ton of work into this, and in a very difficult time when we haven't had to do this kind of reduction in management expenses before or very often, and really came up with creative ideas. And I just credit, specifically Melissa, thank you. And Holly's here so she can hear it, and Athena as well. But I just want to convey that to the general public and to my colleagues.
And I think we all join you in that sincere thank you. Kathy?
Actually, I was going to say that too, Paul. I mean, it just, the staff stayed with us through all these meetings. And in addition to your staff staying with us, most of the time when we had written questions, we got written responses that so all the staff was really trying to engage in a conversation, which was very healthy. So I just want to say a couple of things about the two capital budgets we just voted on. The one was pulled out because it's new debt and it's for safety equipment, but everyone should look, if you haven't already, at the list of what we're funding. We are funding an assistance for the 6th grade move to the middle school. We're funding electric school buses and vans, and we're funding the regional school, what they asked us for capital, with a big investment in our own facilities. So, I mean, this is a bare bones capital budget because most vehicles were moved off the budget altogether. So we have a deficit next year, but it's a well-distributed capital budget in terms of urgent needs. So I also want to just thank, I know, Melissa, you had to go to a lot of work to get it anywhere near balanced. And then we still had to move things around to get it all the way to balance. So thank you very much for the extra work on capital projects as well.
Bob Hegna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in this this order, there's a funding for $100,000 for traffic safety, and the committee increased that from 50,000. So recognizing that traffic safety is a real big issue in town, we wanted to address it. And so I think it's a step in the right direction. It's not going to solve the problem, but it's going to help.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, we are going to take a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene at 5 minutes after 9. And we will start with the water and sewer rates, and there is a special public comment period during that time. Please make sure you unmute, and also when you come back, put your camera back on. Okay, it's 9:04, gang. We still have some more agenda to go. Okay. Please turn your video back on as you return. We seem to have a slightly more stable internet. Maybe it's a figment of my imagination. Pam, you're back. Andy, you're back. Anna, you're back. Holly, you're still with us because you're going to be here for water and sewer. Thank you so much. And Doug Marshall, we'll get to yours as fast as we can. Okay. Water and sewer rates. I'm going to read the motion, ask for a second. Serving as the, oh, excuse me. Before I do that, we are now going to discuss the water and sewer rates. The town charter, I believe, no, I think it's our rules of procedure. I can't remember at this hour, but one of them requires that we have a special public comment period before we pass the water and sewer rates. Is there anybody in the town room or in the audience who would like to make public comment at this time, specifically as it relates to the water and sewer rates?
Can I just ask a point of order?
Yes.
Didn't we do a public hearing on the water and sewer rates at last meeting? So are we literally required to do both a public hearing and a special public comment period? And if so, we should fix that.
I agree with that. Okay.
GOL will
Well,
happily hear.
seeing that there's nobody, we're going to move on to the, oh, Pam. Well, you're not, this is not public comment though. Oh, no. This is anybody in the audience, meaning out there. Anybody on Zoom? No. Now we'll move to the motion and you can ask your question with the motion. How's that? Okay. So the motion is serving as the Water Commission and Sewer Commission as set by Section 2.14 of the Amherst Home Rule Charter to adopt Approval Order FY 26-10, increasing the water rates from $5.25 per 100 cubic feet to $6.45 per 100 cubic feet, and increasing the sewer rate from 5.8385, per 100 cubic feet to $6.95 per 100 cubic feet, effective July 1, 2025, and is shown on page 20 of the motion sheets. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Counselor Pam Rooney.
Thank you. I have a question about the ability for us to differentiate the rate between commercial uses and residential uses. We have large users as Amherst College, UMass. We have commercial entities in town who use water. Does it not make sense that large users actually pay more per gallon or cubic foot than a residential user? Has this ever been discussed?
Okay. Before we move to that, I'm going to ask for the Finance Committee report. Kathy?
So I gave it earlier. Do you want me
Okay.
to give it
Nope.
again?
It's fine. You gave it last week,
Yeah,
2 weeks
I-
ago.
I did, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I can probably remember what I said, but
No. Okay.
but I can, if you want, speak to the question that Pam just asked.
Please go ahead.
Okay, what we were told a few years ago, we had, and I will find it because we had a person come in to speak to us, is one of the ways you can differentiate is if the size, it's either the meter or the pipe that's coming in it. For the big users, it's larger. And that takes some of the pressure off of the per volume rate for covering capital costs because that's a fixed cost every month. So if you look at your own water bill, you'll see there's a piece of it that's always the same, and then the rest varies by how much you've used it. But we've never gone all the way to explore, would that make sense or not, and how to do that. And my understanding, and then Melissa or Holly can do it, to literally say, you use a lot of water and you pay more. The problem with us is UMass pays 40 or 50% of all our water. And when they went home for COVID, we were in really big trouble, because they are in effect paying for the amount they use. But that would have been a way of covering more of it. We can do a variable rate that if you're a really low user, you get a different rate than higher. And DPW would like to look at that, but we haven't had any proposals on how one might do that. So it gives you have to set it carefully because you still need to bring enough to cover costs, but it would give people an incentive to conserve on water use. But it would not necessarily be like at the really big users would be paying at the top of the rate. So Melissa, but we don't have yet, we need a consultant to kind of work through with our rates and then look at what might be an alternative because we always have to make sure the revenues cover the costs.
Okay.
That's a layperson's explanation of it.
Holly, you have your hand up. Please go ahead. Holly, you need to unmute.
This one. I'm sorry. I believe Guilford is in the audience and he can probably explain better than I can, but I know that the town did have a tiered rate for water and sewer. One of my previous jobs with the town was actually to do the water and sewer billing for the town. So at one point we did have a tiered rate where the more you used, the more that you paid. The town did away with that several years back. I can't exactly remember when, and I can't exactly remember the reason why. But one of the things that we are proposing in this capital plan, I believe, and if not in the 26 capital plan, it is definitely in the 27, but I believe it's in the 26 capital plan, is to do a full study of the water and sewer systems along with how we are setting our rates and make sure we are setting our rates the proper way and to have a little refresh of that. So that is something that is going to start after July 1.
Holly, thank you for that. We'll turn to Guilford. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Since I just got here, I'll just wait for other questions.
The question was about differentiating rates, making them higher for bigger users. And Holly just answered by saying that there will be a full look at how we do rate setting starting in July. And that she mentioned that you may know the history of why we stopped doing that and when.
Yes, I know. Well, we do plan to look at rates and do a whole study on whether we can go change our rate system. DEP would prefer that we go to a tiered rate system. That is what they are wishing for everyone in the state to do. A tiered rate system that makes you pay more if you're a waster of potable water and less if you're a conserver of potable water. That's kind of how they phrase it. We did have a tiered rate. We had 3 tiers back when I first came here in 2002. During Larry Schaefer's term as town manager, he eliminated the rates at the request of the university. There was some agreement that I don't remember all the parts of the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Holly, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, thank you. Pam, thanks for asking the question. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, we begin with Councillor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Councillor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Andy Steinberg,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Councillor Walker,
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Thank you. Pat DeAngelis,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier,
Aye.
Councillor Ette,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hagner.
Yes.
Thank you. Next motion, in accordance with General Bylaw 3.62 Water Use Regulations, having heard public comments specific to the proposed amendments on June 16th, 2025, notice of which was posted on the town bulletin board for at least 10 days on June 2nd, 2025, and notice of amendments published in the newspaper on June 2nd, 2025, to amend the water use regulations Appendix A as follows: by replacing the effective date of July 16, 2024 with July 1, 2025, by replacing domestic water rates $5.25 per 100 cubic feet with domestic water rates of $6.45 per 100 cubic feet, and by replacing agricultural water rates $5.25 per 100 cubic feet with agricultural water rates $6.45 per 100 cubic feet. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other question or comment? Seeing none, we'll start with Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hagner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord. Okay, next one. In accordance with General Bylaw 3.61 Sewer Use Regulations, having heard public comments specific to the proposed amendment on June 16th, 2025, notice of which was posted on the town bulletin board for at least 10 days on June 2nd, 2025, and amendments were published in the newspaper on June 2nd, 2025, to amend the sewer use regulation Appendix A as follows: by replacing the effective date of July 16, 2024 with July 1, 2025, and by replacing domestic sewer rate $5.85 per square 100 per 100 cubic feet with domestic sewer rate $6.95 per 100 cubic feet, and by replacing the volume of septage gallons costs of 0 to 1,000 at $1.50. I mean 150. They'd like that one. 1,000 to 1,500 at $225. 1,500 to 2,000 at $300, and over 2,000 at $300 for the first 2,000 gallons, plus $75 per additional 500 gallons or portions thereunder. Tight tanks, $100. Portable toilets, $150 for 100 gallons or less with, and here's the replacement, 0 to 1,000 at $180, 1,000 to 1,500 at $270, 1,500 to 2,000 at $360, over 2,000 at $360 for the first 2,000 gallons, plus $90 for additional 500 gallons or portions thereunder. Tight tanks, $120, portable toilets, $180 for 1,000 gallons or less.
Could
If
you repeat the
anybody
second?
repeat the emotion, you're going to read it yourself. Is there a second?
I seconded.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, then we're going to move to a vote. This time we start with Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Yes.
Anna,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hagner,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. The next item is, which is on Paley Road acceptance, or Paley Village Road acceptance, and Paley Village Place is, we will not do until June 30th. We're going to move to the referral of the proposed zoning amendment, zoning bylaw section 5.011 accessory dwelling units. We have with us tonight both Doug Marshall, who is chair of the planning board. And if needed, Nate Malloy is also in the audience. Let me begin, if you don't mind, by reading the motion. And it's a referral. It's in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Paragraph 5, to refer the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, rescinding the current zoning bylaw, Section 5.011, accessory dwelling units, and replacing it with a new zoning bylaw, Section 5.011, accessory dwelling units, to the planning board for public hearing within 65 days and report to the town council, to the Community Resources Committee for public hearing and recommendations to the town council, and to governance, organization, and legislation for a final review of clarity, consistency, and actionability. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Marshall. How are you? Would you like to speak to this issue? Thank you.
Thank you, President Griesmer. This zoning bylaw is proposed and basically in response to the governor's passage of the Affordable Homes Act. I got to give most of the credit to Nate for keeping track of that legislation and pushing the board to approve a revision to the bylaw, or to recommend a revision to the bylaw that would bring the town zoning bylaw in conformance with the requirements of that act. The board did talk about a number of possible requirements to affix or to attach to the statutory ADU that is the state has mandated by right. But as we discussed the bylaw over the several months, and the state issued more and more clarity about how they were going to interpret that, many of the ideas that the board had fell off of contention just because they were really not going to be considered legal. So what you have is pretty much a pared down, simple bylaw that has two categories of ADU. One category is the by right ADUs that the state has instituted. And the other category is a larger ADU that does require owner occupancy of one of the units on the site, conformance with our design guidelines. And that is there to give people the option to build something larger, but also to make sure that the ADUs that have been built in the last few years under our existing bylaw are in conformance with our bylaw. So I don't view this as a particularly radical or contentious proposal. If you set aside the fact that the state is mandating that ADUs of a certain size need to be allowable by right in our town and all towns in the Commonwealth. So I'll stop there. Nate, you can add or correct anything that I said.
Nate, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. Nate Malloy, a planner with the town. No, I don't have much to add that Doug said. I think, we're still looking at the determinations from the Attorney General's office. So they continue to review zoning bylaw amendments that have been submitted. by towns. A lot of them are still through fall town meeting or late fall town meeting. And so, as this process unfolds, we might need to make changes, but this really is, it has a dozen general requirements that are applicable to the local ADU and the protected use ADU. And really that's, what's considered reasonable according to statute. There's really not much more we could add. And so, the planning board discussed, for instance, limiting ADUs to single family homes, but that's not allowed. Having some kind of occupancy requirement or something that's not allowed. Having a student home definition, that's not really allowed. And so, the state made it clear through the rules and regulations and through the legal interpretations of what they meant by the statute. And really it is to kind of promote the construction of ADUs, not having unreasonable regulations. And so I think what we have here is, something that we could all say, the board feels are all reasonable. There may be some questions along the way, but I think we've pared it down to what we think can move forward.
Okay. Questions from the council. Councilor Ryan.
So one of the key issues has been the issue of owner occupancy, and one of the categories that's being proposed does allow for mandating owner occupancy, as I understand it. You're confident that this can pass state scrutiny, or maybe you're not confident, you're going to wait and see, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
No, so if an accessory dwelling unit meets the definition of the protected use ADU, so 900 square feet or 50% of the gross floor area or smaller, it's protected use ADU. If it's beyond that, up to 1,200, then it's the local ADU, and owner occupancy can be required, but we can't require it for a protected use ADU. So although it's a definition, two different by definition, it's also by size. So unless someone really argues that they want to be a local ADU and have owner occupancy, if they meet a protected use, they're just the protected use ADU. So.
Okay. Councilor Haneke.
I have a lot of questions, but I will save most of them for the CRC hearing. But I am concerned with Section 5.0113 General Requirements, Section B, the one that states only one accessory dwelling unit may be permitted on a lot with the principal dwelling. This section is purported to apply to both local accessory dwelling units and protected use accessory dwelling units. But the state regulations state that municipalities shall not prohibit or require special permit, razor, waiver, blah, 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 for a protected use ADU, use of land for a protected use ADU. So the way I read the proposed bylaw, it would prohibit a protected use ADU on a site that already has a local ADU on it, and that's against the regulations in state law. So I'm curious how you believe it's not against the regulations in state law. And I'm also curious then, why wouldn't we end up with 2 ADUs on every lot that people want ADUs? They'd first seek their accessory permit for a local accessory dwelling unit. Once that's built, then they build a protected use dwelling unit, because you can't prohibit a protected use dwelling unit on any lot, even if it already has an ADU on it. So can you speak to those 2 questions for me?
Sure, I was just taking some notes. So, although this incentivizes ADUs, it's not, we allow it on the books now, right? And so to build an accessory dwelling unit is still probably $250,000. So I don't think someone would, say, well, let me just build one and then maybe I build another one. I think it's actually a, pretty conscious decision on how that moves forward. But to your point, someone could, right, try to figure out how they can do one and then the other. And that works now, right? So you could have a smaller house that could qualify as an ADU, but you're calling that your principal dwelling. And then you're going to build a bigger house and say, well, that's my new principal dwelling. And someone would say, wait a minute, isn't the small one? And you just say, well, you just take out your kitchen and it's no longer a habitable space. I mean, there's ways to, kind of game the system. And so we're not trying to envision any, if someone wants to come through that and say that, then it's a discussion with the building commissioner of the town at that time. So what the rules and regulations say from the state is you can have one protected use ADU on a property that has any dwelling unit. So it's not limited to a single family home. It could be, a mixed use building that has one unit. It could be, a live work building that has an auto garage and an apartment, and you can still have an ADU. And if someone wants to do that and then also have a local ADU, they probably could. So they still have to conform to all the dimensional standards, and the local ADU is subject to lot coverage and building coverage. And so the protected use isn't. And so maybe there is a case to say that that's appropriate given all of our dimensional standards in our zoning bylaw.
Can you speak to how Section B is not violative of the state regulations, though, that says only one ADU may be permitted on a lot with the principal dwelling that doesn't distinguish between local and protected use?
Yeah, I think that's a good catch. I think we need to qualify that. And so the building commissioner would allow a protected use ADU to be built if that were the case. So, typically in our zoning bylaw, we don't reiterate everything in state law. And so realistically, if we just wanted to say we're going to conform to the state law and regulations, we don't even need to have anything in our zoning bylaw. It would just be the interpretation and administration of it by staff and the building commissioner. And so, although this seems to say be inconsistent with state law, the building commissioner could interpret it otherwise and apply it differently, so we're in conformance. So I do think that we could, add a qualifier there, though, to make it clearer.
Any other questions, Councilor Haneke?
Not at this time.
Okay, Kathy Shane?
No, this is getting referred to CRC.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And the planning board.
So my main question, I think Mandy at least started to ask, I just want to make sure as we start to look at this, that as far as you can see, there's not a problem with us defining a different kind of ADU, a larger one, and having conditions. I like the idea. I just don't want to discover that somehow we've tread on the toes of the ADU people in Boston. So
No,
just that there's been a laying on of hands on some level that we can have this. There's one type that's by right, and then the larger ones they only have a few additional things, mainly at the owner occupied side. So that was my question, just has this been vetted?
Yes, the states actually recommended that you could allow different categories of ADUs. You just have to be really clear about that. And you can also be more permissive with the protected use ADU. So you don't actually have to limit it to 900 square feet. So some communities might say, well, we actually think 1,000 square feet is necessary. And so then their protected use definition is 1,000 square feet. So you can't be more restrictive than the state regulations and legislation, but you can be more permissive. And so, the guidance on the webinars and even from HLC, the state, department said you can always have a local definition. As Doug mentioned, both to keep if you've already permitted some from becoming non-conforming, and then also having a different category, whether that's for, having other conditions or size, or for whatever reason, a local municipality might want that.
Kathy? Yes?
That is, Jennifer has her hand up,
Yeah.
but I'm done.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I don't want to just repeat what Nate said, but yeah, in having listened in on the planning board meetings, the state requires you have to allow a protected use ADU you can't have restrictions that would make it smaller than 900 square feet. So that is just a given. And then if we want to have our own local ADUs, we can, but there's nothing we can do to restrict the protected use ADU. So we're actually adding to it, which the state would probably appreciate. We're saying in Amherst, you could have a protected use ADU because that's a state law. And then if we want to keep our current bylaw, but what we're saying, what the planning board is proposing is that by allowing it to be larger than what we currently allow, that provides an incentive instead of, property owners just building the 900 square foot protected use ADU, which they can do by right. They might want to build a larger ADU with the owner occupancy requirement. So as long as we allow the protected use ADU according to state law, we can add our own ADUs in addition to that.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Again, this is a referral. They'll go through the whole process of the hearings on both CRC and planning board. Seeing none, we're going to move to a vote. Kathy Shane?
This is, we're voting on referral, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg?
Yes.
Jennifer Taub?
Yes.
Counselor Walker? Counselor Walker? Okay,
Yes.
No. Did you say no?
Yes.
Okay. You said yes. Thank you. Pat DeAngelis?
Aye.
Devlin Gothier?
Aye.
Counselor Ette? Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke?
Aye.
Bob Hagner?
Aye.
Counselor Lord?
Aye.
Pam Rooney?
Yes.
And Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is first of all, before we go any further, I want to thank both Doug and the planning board, as well as Nate, for all your work, working through what the state has said, what we might want as a community, and we'll see where this goes from here. And we'll be back in 65 days or so. Okay? Thank you so much. We've been joined by Gaston Delarez on behalf of the Housing Trust, and also Greg Rishan. Is that the correct way to say that? Rasheen, thank you, Associate Planner. I'm going to make the motion and then ask them to speak to it. In accordance with Mass General Law 40A, paragraph 5, to refer the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to the zoning bylaw section 15.175, inclusionary zoning, payment of fees in lieu of affordable units to the planning board for hearing within 65 days and report to the town council, to the Community Resources Committee for public hearing and recommendation to the town council, and to governance, organization, and legislation for review, final review of clarity, consistency, and actionability. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, in this case, let's start with the Gaston.
Thank you. We can be brief, and I think I can be even more effective with some slides here. So on behalf of the trust, I'd like to thank you for your consideration of our proposed amendment. The proposed language is here in red. I want you to see that our proposal is very focused. We are basically seeking to expand flexibility in terms of the amount that might be available for payment in lieu of actually including affordable units. The experience of the trust was being requested to support the developer's request to exercise the option and make a payment in lieu of developing the 3 units. The town's position was actually that the amount to be paid in lieu should be higher than what was set forth in the bylaw. We considered the arguments, we found them compelling, and we recommended to the planning board to accept the request and to consider raising the amount. The planning board did not feel kind of ready to negotiate that amount because the bylaw doesn't spell out such flexibility. And so, the trust considered it. There are a number of factors that we thought were compelling why there should be flexibility. Market rates change, developments are unique, et cetera, et cetera. And so, in effect, what we're recommending is that the bylaw give the planning board additional flexibility, not only kind of the current amount that is offered as an option, but potentially much higher. And we set forth some of the factors that might be considered, but it's a non-exclusive list. And so we encourage you to consider this. And of course, you may find ways to improve upon this language. And we are, at your service if we can be helpful with our point of view. And so I'll just stop here. Greg, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
Greg?
I think Gaston covered all the key points, but happy to answer anything else if folks have questions.
Okay. First of all, thank you for all your work. Councillor Ryan.
So I appreciate that this would give the Housing Trust greater flexibility, but I'm looking at it, if I may, from the other perspective. If you're a developer looking to do something like this, it really matters that you have some idea of what you're getting into. And here you're looking at a range between 4 and 10 times the current median family income. So it's hard for me to imagine, I may be wrong, that a developer would entertain this option because they have no idea what it's actually going to cost them until the permitting authority finally makes its decision. And they can't do a project like that. Perhaps 4 times is not enough. I don't know. It's been used once and it seemed to work. It produced substantial funds for the Housing Trust. But this proposal, at least my initial thought, is how do you think a developer would look at this? In doing their pro formas, they would know what number to use. And so I would think this would almost guarantee that this option would never be chosen. So I guess I would hope that in the discussion that follows, there'll be some attention given to that concern and some assurances that this is actually something that could work. Because my personal reaction to it initially is this is going to guarantee this will never be used.
May I quickly reply? I mean, as it is, developers can't count on this. So the developer must make the project pencil based on affordable units. So I'm just having trouble squaring the concern exactly. And indeed, the trust wanted to get information from the pro formas from the developer, and they were not willing to share any information that would allow us to understand why they thought it was such a great deal for them to pay that cash. So the developer was not willing to be candid about their calculations that demonstrated to them that it was very good and much preferable for them to pay that cash than to develop the units. And so, in fact, by creating this range, you might be able to get more information from developers and have a useful negotiation. So, but of course, this is outside our ken. I mean, the trust is not in a position to approve, but rather only to recommend. And the planning board takes it up from there.
Nate, please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a subsection of a part of the inclusionary zoning bylaw where, this is only requested through a special permit process. So it's not something that is provided in the inclusionary zoning bylaw as by right. It has to be given through a discretionary special permit anyways. And if 6 or more affordable units are required, half have to be on site, and then the other half could be off site or have a payment in lieu. And so it's a narrow window that this applies to, but it's important because on the example that Gaston mentioned, the trust actually recommended a higher amount. The developer was willing to pay for it. The planning board felt that the bylaw was written so specifically they couldn't negotiate a different range and payment in lieu. That could be, justified given if it's downtown or in a brand new building or whatever the circumstances may be. And so I don't think a developer, if they really want a payment in lieu, they're going to go in there thinking that and have to ask for a special permit. And so, they're going to factor in some amount anyways. And I think the 4 to 10, they'll say, well, maybe I'll do 7. But then, like Gaston said, we'll actually get somewhere with a discussion as opposed to if it's only 4, they only offer 4 times the amount. And there's no way to actually try to discern what is the right appropriate value of those units.
George?
So just briefly, that it seems to suggest that what you see this doing is providing a chance for a kind of negotiation. Is that kind of what this is driving to, as opposed to this is what it's going to be, take it or leave it? But with this proposal, you see this leading to the potential of a negotiation between the developer and the permitting authority.
Right, as a special permit process, it's a little, right, there can be more negotiating than say like a site plan review or something that's by right. And so the Housing Trust is in a position to make a recommendation to the permit granting authority, which they did, and they would have the ability to do that again. And then the permit granting authority, whether it's the zoning board or planning board, would have the ability to really ask what is the appropriate amount per unit as a payment in lieu. And so I think that, I think that's a really important piece of this. And so, the developer could say 10 times is really unreasonable, and then they have to explain why. And so is it 8, or what is the right ratio or payment amount? So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Again, this is a referral. Kathy?
This may be a simple question, but what is in the current bylaw? So what I read the memo and it said you thought it would, and is Pam saying it's 3? So I don't know how the most recent one, I know it's only been used once, so it's 3 times?
No, it's what you see without the red text. So it says shall be 4 times.
And that's what's in the current bylaw?
Yes.
Okay, that was just, my question was what's in the current bylaw? And so you
Exactly.
have 4 times up to 10 is the way you're
Yeah, the
changing.
4 times, it just says shall be 4. And
Shall be
we're proposing a range. That's the amended
Okay, thank you.
language. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, we start this one with Andy Steinberg,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you all for this serious consideration and bringing this forward and your patience with our agenda this evening.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Our last action item is reconsideration of the town council vote to appoint Councilors Griesmer, Ryan, Shane, and Haneke as council representatives to the 4 towns fiscal sustainability task force, and to authorize those councilors to speak on behalf of the council. Just to, this was requested by Anna Devlin Gauthier. And let me just mention that unless there is new information to present, it requires that the motion be made by somebody from the prevailing side. Okay. Anna, did you want to speak to your request?
I would, and I believe that I have new information, but if I don't, perhaps there's someone on the prevailing side that would like to make the motion, but I'll start, see how it goes. I missed our last meeting due to a prior commitment with my family. In missing that meeting, I also missed the ability to advocate on my own behalf to be appointed to the 4 towns fiscal sustainability task force. It was clear to me, based on the discussion, that there was a question of whether or not I would be interested and able to serve as one of the representatives to the task force. I sought this motion to reconsider because I believe the council was missing the information that I am, in fact, very much willing and able to serve. A few months ago, I worked closely with the chair of the Regional School Committee and the chair of the Amherst School Committee to draft a charge for a committee seeking to do much of what the proposed task force would do. In preparing that charge, as well as in participating as a counselor in the budgetary process, I learned a great deal about the needs of our schools as well as the needs of the town, and gained clarity on the delicate ecosystem that is our community. I attended school committee budget hearings and public forums and spoke with numerous individuals with a variety of perspectives on the issues at hand in order to learn more detail about the impact of the various budgets. I also feel compelled to mention how disheartened I was to read and hear the characterization of my efforts to balance the differing needs in our community as an inability to think critically and in a balanced way. My motion earlier this year to not immediately allocate $1 million to roads and sidewalk paving, instead ensuring the schools had the time and ability to seek free cash funding, was not out of an inability to look clearly at an issue. And it was supported by other members who were voted to be on this task force. And when a later motion was made to fund sidewalks and roads, I supported it, and it passed. An effort to ensure that all parties have access to the funding tools they need is not a bias. A counselor putting in significant work to understand issues facing their community and trying to find a middle ground is not an inability to come to thoughtful conclusions. I go into every decision this council makes with a desire to understand, not with a decision already made. I hold my role as a town councilor in incredibly high regard and take the work very seriously. That means understanding the impacts of our decisions on all of our residents. I am asking the council to reconsider this vote based on the information that I would like to be appointed as one of the representatives, which it was clear based on the discussion that I watched was a question councilors did not have an answer to at the last meeting. I've spent a considerable amount of time over the past few years learning about the needs of our community, including our schools. I proposed an initial iteration of this very group. I did a significant amount of research and collaborative work leading up to that proposal, and I believe that my willingness to seek multiple perspectives is exactly why I should be appointed. I ask that you support reconsideration of the appointment vote so that I might be known as an interested party and considered. Thank you.
Okay, and so the question is whether or not that, I believe I get to rule on whether I think that this is sufficient new information, right?
Counselor Devlin Gauthier would make the motion.
Okay.
And if you disagree that that information is sufficient, then you would rule it out of order and the council would have an opportunity to overrule that ruling.
Okay. I don't.
But the motion comes first.
I think that this is fine for reconsideration. I'm not going to rule against it. Okay, so in that case, the motion is to reconsider the town council vote to appoint Councilors Griesmer, Ryan, Shane, and Haneke as council representatives to the four-town Fiscal Sustainability Task Force and to authorize those councilors to speak on behalf of the council. This is a motion that requires a second.
Who's making the motion?
I believe I have to make the motion.
Okay, fine.
So moved.
So moved and seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. All right, so the first vote is only on whether or not to reconsider, okay? The second vote, if we vote to reconsider, is where we reconsider who those representatives would be. So I want to be very clear. The first motion is only to reconsider, okay? And we begin with Jennifer Todd.
Counselor Lord has her hand up.
I'm sorry?
Counselor Lord has their hand up.
Yes, Counselor Lord.
Is there no discussion?
Oh, please go
am I-
ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm voting to reconsider with respect to my colleagues, but I have noticed some things that are a cause for concern. I'm grateful in some ways that this is being brought forward, as I've heard disparaging and tense statements regarding our school committee members and superintendent, or thoughts and around our different municipal bodies, us included. Me being who I am, last year began to think and hope for a chance that the town council and school committee could sit in circle with a restorative justice lens, where we build relationship together as we have the privilege to be elected to make and or support decisions that have major impacts on our youth, our families, our teachers, staff, and community. I know time availability and maybe it's not going to happen, but this is just a hope. So I also have the honor or distinction of currently serving on the town council and having served on the school committee. So I strongly support our reconsideration. We have amazing people, and I believe that Anna Devon Glothler, even I just learned this, is one who would lead with the skills of being open and listening and bringing all that she brings to the table. That's why I'm voting for reconsideration. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments? Okay, again, the first vote is whether or not to reconsider. It requires a majority. We begin with Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer is an aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Yes.
Okay, we move to reconsideration. So at this point, the idea was that, let me Let me use this as an opportunity to bring you up to date on what I know or don't know, okay? The superintendent of schools and I had a chance today at the groundbreaking to briefly talk. She was not able to obtain a facilitator for the initially planned meeting, which was to be on Wednesday night. But she is speaking with the Regional School Association sometime this week and hopes to be able to come back with an additional date to propose. The meantime, I have continued to talk with the heads of the select boards of each of the other towns, and we continue to be very interested in moving forward with this conversation and hope that such a meeting will occur soon. And if and we have identified a tentative date of at least no later than August 11 as a possible meeting time. So we're all trying to get to a meeting date, and that's, I think, the best way to leave it. Other than that, there's not much else as an update. So, Councillor Ette.
I think I had apprehensions last time with the way the names were raised. And I don't think my vote was contingent on Anna expressing her intention to be a member of the group that would speak on behalf of the town. My vote was based on the simplicity of the way the group was being created. And so if I have it correctly, it was supposed to be the president, vice chair of finance, and someone else was added.
It was the president, the vice president, the chair of finance, and the person from finance who had spent most time looking at education budgets.
Okay, so in the interest of simplicity, I think we have, let's suppose this conversation goes on and there's an election and there's a turnover. We don't know who is going to be there. So rather than really focus on names, I would suggest that we have the president, vice, the chair of finance, and the last position would be whoever we think is most suited to talk about the schools. So in that case, it would really be a choice not of the vice in this case, but between Anna and Mandy Johanneke.
Okay. Jennifer Taub.
Yeah, I have a question, then I have a comment. So we have to have it would be a motion to have the vote again, and that motion would have to be made by someone on the prevailing side?
No, that we've already decided that we will reconsider. So we're done with that part of it.
So I'll just repeat what I said last time. The way it was explained to us, it was the president of the council, vice president, the chair of the finance committee, and a counselor who had been very, active and had, was steeped in this issue. So I thought, and with all, again, nothing, I'm just talking about roles, not individuals. I don't see why the president and vice president of the council what the logic is between both those positions being represented on this committee. I understand the chair of the finance committee, and I think Councillor Devin Gauthier has been very active. I think the same criteria that was used for Councillor Haneke to be selected applies to Councillor Devin Gauthier. So that is why I supported the president of the council, the chair of the finance committee, and Councillors Haneke and Devin Gauthier.
Okay. Anna, did you have further comments now?
A slight one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Now that it's a different discussion. I would encourage us not to only just err on the side of simplicity. I think that if we start making decisions based on ease of slotting people in, we are going to run into problems where we're not putting folks in the room who are either the most versed on the issue or the most varied on the issue. I would rather select folks based on the work that they're engaging in and the knowledge that they have. I question whether the role of president and vice president as written, specifically the role of vice president as written, serves as a qualifier to be appointed to this task force. I served as vice president of this council for a couple years and will remind counselors that that role is to serve in the absence of the president. It's not tied to any other service. And so I think if we want to designate appointment slots, it makes sense to me to have either the president or the vice president as one, if you'd like council leadership to have a spot, and then chair of the finance, and then leave 2 spots open for other counselors. If that was a vote that was taken to make this a simple process to appoint people based on existing position, that's a different question. But if folks are considering this in their own minds in terms of who they believe to should be appointed, I would encourage us to look at how folks are approaching this discussion, not the roles that they serve on. The roles they have, that would grammatically fixing that.
Pam Rooney?
Both Anna Devlin Gothier and Jennifer spoke to my issues.
Thank you. Kathy Shane?
I just wanted to also say, I don't see why both president and vice president, why that's a qualifier. So, so Anna, when you had proposed reconsideration, I wasn't sure where you were going on the 4, but I think that's become clearer. Thank you.
Councillor Etche?
I'll refrain from speaking.
Councillor Ryan?
So I guess this becomes the question of how people are approaching this discussion. So how are people approaching this discussion? I'm all ears. We've had clear message from the Finance Committee, clear message from our financial authorities who study this town budget, that we are headed to a financial disaster. And we need to get the help and support of the school committee in dealing with this. We've also seen repeatedly evidence that at the moment, they don't have the slightest interest, apparently, in meeting us even halfway. So my approach is to listen. I don't plan to say anything. I don't think this is a forum. First of all, I've just heard that now it's being postponed to August 11th. That's distressing news. I don't know why that's so late, but that's another issue. But I don't see this gathering as a discussion, as a back and forth, as a place for all 4 representatives from at least the council to speak. I assume only 1 or perhaps at the most 2 members would actually speak. We're there simply to represent the council and to listen. And I think that's something I'm perfectly capable of doing. I cannot overestimate or we face a real financial challenge. The chair of the Finance Committee has made that clear. The Finance Committee's report has made that clear. Town managers made that clear. And I think unless you have your head deeply embedded in the sand and you've been listening to some of the things that have been said over the last couple of months, it doesn't seem to have had any impact on our school committees. That's deeply personally distressing to me because at the very least, if you actually care about education, you care about kids, you care about teachers, the most important thing is to have a fiscally sustainable plan going forward that takes into account the fiscal realities of this town. So that's where I'm coming from. If you're coming from that approach, then you know where I'm coming from. I'd like to hear from others who apparently are coming from a different approach.
Andy?
Yeah, no, I was following George. He sort of led to where my thinking was, and that is that I'm not sure that I'm getting the information. It really helps me figure out who best to be on this group. Had already expressed my unhappiness at the last meeting that the largest town that is providing 85% of the budget is having the same number of members as every other town. And but we do have a real crisis. And it's not just a crisis in Amherst, it's sort of a crisis in all towns because the amount that was put forward in the last year's budget is breaking other towns too. So we really need to have a forum that achieves some purposes. And I'm just not convinced that this is being created in that fashion. And so therefore, it's really hard to figure out who the best people are to be the representatives on it. We've got to recognize that there's a shortage of funding in all municipalities in Massachusetts, and that the state is in a position where it is underfunding municipalities and education, which is a primary responsibility of municipalities, and that we cannot look at increases in one segment of a budget that are continuing to go up year after year after year at a rate greater than other components of the municipality, unless we're willing to face what that means. And I think that's part of the discussion that needs to take place. I'm not convinced that that's where this agenda for this is going, and therefore it's kind of hard for me even come to a conclusion as to who can represent Amherst, because I'm not sure what they're representing Amherst to do.
Okay. Pam?
Certainly the tone has certainly been leaning toward confrontation, the tone between the town and the schools. And it occurs to me that the folks representing the schools might actually be a little more forthcoming with both information and willingness to show some flexibility if there are people, instead of being grilled, that there are actually people that may be perceived as being open to their needs and concerns and be more willing to speak. I again didn't have any concern or issue with Mr. Ryan, but it just seemed that Anna had been so much more engaged on that topic that to me it was just a very logical person to put on this team of 4 representing the Town Council of Amherst. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Mandy Jo and then come back to others who have spoken. Councillor Haneke.
If I were appointed, I would do my best to represent what I believe is the town council's majority opinion, which I know is not always my opinion. And I will state that because I have been a vocal counselor that doesn't always come in with the majority. But if I'm a representative of the council, I recognize my duty is to represent the council, not necessarily my own view. In a forum like I've heard it will operate, I share Andy's concern with, I don't exactly know how to do that at this point, because I'm not sure whether we'd have enough information beforehand to be able to really get an idea of where the council stands. But after 7 years on the council, a number of years on finance, a number of years on other committees where I've served with a lot of counselors, listened a lot of times, I would hope that I can take a very good educated guess as to where the council might, if a question was put to them, fall on that. I would also find it, believe it our responsibility to try and find commonalities, particularly with other towns. As it's a conversation, my at least current understanding of what's going on and the purpose of this is it's a conversation between the school committee and the towns about ability to fund the school district, not just Amherst, but everyone, all 4 towns. And so looking to a meeting where we might be able to find some commonalities with other towns, where they're struggling and we're struggling, and finding a way to represent that to the body that is proposing a budget, and that. And I believe I would also bring a level of knowledge of not just budgets, but the workings of the financial process, the workings of our charter and how it relates to our own oversight of the budget and our own, as people have referred to it today, lane, and how extensive that lane is or not, that could be useful in conversations. So that's at least 3 points as to what I believe I would bring and how I would approach the conversation.
Okay. I'm going to go back to Anna because everybody else that has their hand up has also spoken. Anna.
I don't agree with the premise that the school committee is not interested in working with us. I don't think we've given them a venue and an opportunity to actually do so. I think we've given them many opportunities to shoehorn themselves within our process and what we want. I don't think that we've been willing to actually look deeper than one-time free cash payments at a system that's not working. And that's what I'm hoping that this task force will start to do, start to pull at those threads to look long-term and actually look at needs. I do believe it's our role to speak and listen, to speak about our needs, to speak about our challenges. And it's the role of everyone on that committee to be facing the problem, not fighting each other. I believe that I bring an ability to question and challenge, and that includes questioning and challenging others, as well as our own processes, practices, needs. I'm under no illusions about the challenges that we face. And as we've seen, I'm willing to put forward proposals that may make me unpopular, as we've also seen, but that try to find a balance. I proposed something instead of brushing people off or only seeking more without naming where to get it from. The folks on this task force need to represent the council as well as bring backup information to the council. And this body is looking at those long-term needs and plans. So finding a way to move forward together is necessary. I'm coming from an approach that the way that we are engaging with this issue is not working. I'm coming from a place of needing to figure out the financial crisis, but also needing to figure out how to actually function and plan together. Because saying one group isn't willing to work with another just isn't going to get us there.
Councillor Ete?
The reason I went for a simple solution is because I realize that the discussion related to the schools and how they'll be funded is pretty complicated. And also finding who would be best suited to represent the council is complicated as well. It requires the wisdom of Solomon because we are here asked to reflect on different counselors and how much they know and how much they have worked with the schools. This give me a sheet of paper. Let's write an exam so we could see who gets the highest grade. There's no way for me to know that between several of the people who are on this group, and that's why I was going for something that is simple. I don't think we should rely on insinuations on where we think other councillors are regarding this issue. And I also don't think that it is frankly possible to represent the majority decision of the council, because majority implies a number implies voting, but we will have councillors who will be in some group where it is only after the fact that they'll come back to reach to us as the council. So I would encourage councillors to return back to what the original vote was, not because I prefer one person over the other, but that simplicity works now and it'll work after November, perhaps when there are new councillors, and then we may have to have this examination on who best knows what is appropriate for the schools again.
Jennifer?
Yes, I just wanted to, it was my understanding or impression that this was not just a listening group, that this was going to be, this sustainability committee was going to be having a conversation. So, right, because that was an observation.
It's a listening, it's a conversation, it's a data exploration on both sides of both revenue as well as needs of the schools.
Right, so it's not just that this
And
group
it divides actually for Amherst as a regional conversation and also then an elementary conversation.
Right. So this is, because you even said that these 4 counselors would be kind of authorized to speak on behalf of the council. So it's not just a listening opportunity,
Right.
it's not just a listening session. So, and I think to speak on behalf of the council, we have different, positions and points of view, and we're not in lockstep. So I don't, so, which is why I think that Anna has done the homework, that she, her voice should be part of the conversation. So I think that we sometimes select people to be on bodies so that they will, that body will come to the decision that it's kind of been predetermined that they will come to that decision because of who's been appointed. So I think since there's 13 of us, we all can't be on this committee, but I think it would be a shame not to have Anna's voice.
Thank you. Andy.
I'll turn to a different topic. That is, have we given any consideration as to whether the executive branch of our government should be represented in one of the positions?
Paul is one of the 5. That's why there's only 4 counselors, because Paul is automatically.
Thank you. I appreciate that correction.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was continued to be clarity. Thank you for making sure we all understand that, though. George Ryan, Councilor Ryan.
So again, I think we have to think about what we're trying to accomplish in this meeting that we hope will happen. Is it a debate amongst the 4 Amherst councilors about what Amherst wants to do, and then a debate about the 4 representatives of Shutesbury, Leverett, Pelham? You can see how this will easily get out of hand and really produce nothing. I think it's important that we bring a single unified message of the financial straits we're in, the crisis we face, and the need for us to be forthcoming on both sides about what we can and cannot do. That seems to be the message. We're not going to provide any kinds of solutions at this meeting. We're not going to discuss various scenarios of what might or not be done. We simply need to communicate, I think, to both the representatives of the other towns and to the school committee and to the superintendent and to the larger community that we face a very real financial crisis and that we need answers to certain questions and that we are perfectly willing to provide answers to questions that are proposed to us. And then we're supposed to meet again before the first Four Towns meeting. So the time schedule is screwed. And I'm getting the impression that some of you think that this is like just a confab where we all just sort of tell everybody what we're thinking. Imagine what that'd be like with every 4 members from all the bodies. They'll be there for a couple of hours. So I think you also need to think about whether you wish to send a unified message of concern to this body or not, because that's the approach I'm taking. I'm not planning to speak. I don't have any solutions. I certainly want to hear what the other towns have to say. I would like to hear what the superintendent has to say. Of course, I can do that without being a part of this body. But if you're looking for someone to engage in the discussion along with everybody else, to what end, I cannot imagine, then I guess I'm not your choice.
At this point, we seem to have 5 people interested in 4 seats. As we have done in the past, one of the ways to resolve this is every counselor gets 4 votes and we tally them, okay? And that may be the best way to move forward unless somebody wants to make a motion. Okay? Are there any other counselors besides Counselor Griesmer, Counselor Shane, Counselor Haneke, Counselor Ryan, and Counselor Anna Devlin Gothier interested in having their name put forward? Counselor Ette, you have your hand up.
I don't intend to put my name forward. I merely am requesting clarification on what the motion is that we have been
That's-
engaged in.
Okay. George, did you have a question? Okay. What I'm proposing is that there are 5 counselors interested and that each counselor voice their vote for 4 instead of having a motion with names in it. And then we'll move to a motion after we get done with the voting, which is what we've done in the past when we've had to do this. Yes?
So in some sense, kind of like a straw poll that then, once that's taken,
Yeah.
you'll tally
Right.
for each of the 5.
Right. So, and at this point, what we do in this case is, Counselor Walker, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I have a process question. In order for this to work, do you need me to vote for 4? Like, do I have to vote for 4?
Yes.
I disagree.
You disagree?
You could abstain, or a counselor could abstain or vote for less than 4.
Okay. The clerk of the town council has suggested you may vote for however many you want, or you can abstain. Up to 4. And she is going to run the election. So, are we ready? Counselor Ryan, do you still have your hand up?
Lynn, do you want us to write it on a piece of paper?
No. We'll just start.
Lynn, are you asking me to call on counselors?
Yeah.
Counselor DeAngelis? Devlin Gothier?
Devlin Gothier, Griesmer, Shane, Haneke.
Ette?
So I'm going to President, Vice, and Finance. So that would be Grisma, Ryan, and Shane.
Griesmer?
Griesmer, Ryan, Shane, Haneke.
Haneke?
Devlin Gothier, Haneke, Shane, Griesemer.
Hegner,
Griesemer, Haneke, um, Shane, and I'll abstain on the 4th.
okay, Lord,
Griesemer, Shane, Devin Goffler, and I will abstain on a 4th.
okay, Rooney,
Grietzmer, Haneke, Shane, Devlin Gothier.
Ryan,
Grismer, Haneke, Ryan, Shane.
Shane,
Griesmer, Haneke, Gauthier, and Shane.
Steinberg,
Grusmer, Haneke, Ryan, and Shane.
Taub,
Devin Gothier, Geismer, Shane.
and Counselor Walker.
I would like to vote for Devlin Gauthier, Griesmer, and Shane, and abstain on the 4th.
That's 13 for Griesemer, 5 for Ryan, 9 for Counselor Haneke, 7 for Devlin Gothier, and 13 for Counselor Shane. So the top vote getters are Griesemer, Shane, Haneke, and Devlin Gothier.
Okay. So then I'm going to make the following motions to appoint counselors Devlin Gothier, Griesmer, Haneke, and Shane as council representatives to the 4 towns Fiscal Sustainability Task Force, and to authorize those counselors to speak on behalf of the council.
Point of order.
Yes.
I believe it's called the Collaborative Convening on Educational Funding, according to the thing from the superintendent.
I don't care what you call it.
Sounds good.
Is there a second?
I
I'll
second.
second the motion.
All right. Are there any other comments? Then we move to a vote. In this case, we begin the vote with Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Pat DeAngelis.
No.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
Counselor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer. Aye. Counselor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Counselor Lord. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
No.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Motion passes. 11 in favor, 2 opposed. We are blown all my timing. We're moving on to committee and liaison reports. Community Resources Committee.
Thank you. Community Resource Committee met on June 16th, excuse me, 12. We met on June 12. We interviewed, we interviewed 5 candidates for 1 vacant position and 2 impending vacancies for the end of terms. The CRC chair will provide a report on the interview outcome and the recommendations in time for the June 30 council meeting. The statements of interest have to be posted, I guess, a week ahead of time for you all to vote. We will have that discussion. The ZBA candidates will be interviewed on June 26th. The results of that will be provided, but not likely in time for the meeting on June 30th, unfortunately. And then the next item is simply that two of the bylaws that were discussed tonight and referred will come to CRC, so we know what's on our agenda coming up over the summer and fall. Thank you.
Okay. Elementary School Building Committee.
We're meeting this Friday, and there are two regular update on construction and invoices, so it'll be a short meeting. We're meeting once a month.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee, you have the big report, and tomorrow we are meeting from 2 to 4, and the most interesting one to most will be, we have the third quarter report, and we're going to discuss what that looks like. And I've put yet to be determined discussion on capital, including, should we be thinking of using the capital reserve for DPW, but just in the context of where we're going with the big capital projects. So it's not a decision, it's just a discussion. Those are the two big items.
Okay.
The only two items, other than public comments.
All right. GOL, Anna?
GOL will be meeting, excuse me, again on the 24th. We are working through, we will receive the Transportation and Parking Commission charge, I believe, from reading the TSO report and start working on that, excuse me. We will hopefully be, knocking on wood, finishing up. We've got a little bit left to do on the AHRA successor body charge, and then that will be coming back to the council. And we are continuing to move through the revamp of the town manager evaluation process. We also will be doing the if the rules of procedure. So a couple of weeks ago, I sent out a Word version of the rules of procedure. Just a reminder for, oh my gosh, y'all, long COVID, killing me. For folks, if you have the Word document rules of procedure and you've got things that you would like to change, please send me a marked up version so that we can discuss that with GOL. I will just say, I know it's a pain, but it was really helpful to have all the marked up AHRA successor body charges and be able to compile them. So I'm trying to move forward with this as our MO here. So rules of procedure changes, and then as well, we will be looking at, I don't know if we're going to get to on the 24th, given all the other things, but the review of the multi-member body policy. We are keeping tabs on the forms, interest forms received for resident members of Finance Committee and Charter Review, and we will continue to see whether or not we can deem the pool sufficient at each meeting. Thank you.
Joint Capital Planning, we're done with Jones Library. Pam?
I'm happy to announce that the Jones Library Building Committee will meet on July 14. And also I think Paul would mention it, that there is a groundbreaking this Wednesday.
Okay. TSO, Andy?
Excuse me, the report was already in the packet.
Okay. Any liaison reports? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Haneke, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question about the TSO report regarding their recommendations on the Transportation Commission. I'm not sure what it's called anymore. You indicated in the report that there might be needed change. Based on your recommendations, you would also potentially recommend changes to the council rules of procedure and the TSO charge. Is TSO intending to bring those potential changes to the council?
I think that not any specific changes that you have already in the report and in the prior report, the recommendation that if we create a transportation and parking commission that is going through a long process that involves both counselors and staff members of the commission, and it's making a recommendation to the council that for the council to then refer it to a committee and have the committee do over again what the commission has already spent a considerable amount of time does not make sense. So we have said that twice in two different reports, but we would not be coming in with a, as far as I'm aware, I mean, we've never talked about it, but I as an individual do not believe that there's a purpose in how to, the specific changes that would be made, that GOL would sort of look at that issue and try and figure that out for themselves.
Is there any further question, Councillor Haneke? Okay. Liaison reports, please note these are the newest liaisons. Councillor Pat DeAngelis.
The Commission for Persons with Disabilities met on Tuesday, June 10th. And an important issue that was discussed was the town staff and the planning board's lack of communication or consultation with the commission. For example, the commission was asked in May for a letter of support from for the town's application to the Massachusetts Office of Disabilities grant to improve accessibility at the Bang Center. When asked about specifics about what was being proposed, the planning board did not respond. And to quote Myra Ross, the chair, we can't write a letter of support unless we know what we are supporting. Another example was at the June 4th meeting of the planning board. Planner Nate Malloy and Building Commissioner Rob Moore presented a plan to make the south entrance of the Munson Memorial Library accessible by creating a level doorway, a landing and ramp with railings, and a 5-foot wide walkway along the building to the front wall, and then a right angle turn to meet with the main walkway to accessible parking spaces. The work was to be funded by an MOD grant, but commissioners had not been consulted and did not even know that the grant had been submitted, much less awarded. None were aware of the specific plans. The planning board discussion centered on the fate of a large rhododendron that would need to be removed or transplanted in the plans presented. No mention was made as to what design would be most beneficial for people with mobility issues, although the commission had not seen the plans. The consensus was that the most important aspect of the walkway is that it be smooth and clear of obstacles, and if the roots from the rhododendron might grow to infringe on the pavement, the bush should be removed. Again, none of this was solicited. A meeting with the town manager will be requested by the commission to address the ongoing disregard of the commission's input on plans that are clearly within their purview. And we actually didn't get this information about either of these grants if it weren't for the work of Mara Keene, a resident who attended the meeting and then sent the information to the chair and myself and to the staff, Pamela Nolan Young. So this needs to change. It's an ongoing issue. I haven't been at meetings for a long time, but this is always talked about in terms of how they are disregarded. Please change that.
Are there any other committee reports, liaison reports? Seeing none, we approve the minutes. Paul, you don't have a written report this week. Any updates?
Just two things I wanted to mention. So while we appreciate the vote on the budget, the finance department's work is very busy right now as they close out the FY25 fiscal year, and they set up the accounts for FY26 and do all the sort of things that have to happen. So summer is a very busy time for our finance department as they move forward. The other thing I want to mention is we had a really terrific event this afternoon with the groundbreaking for the new track and field. Excellent. We had nearly 150 people there from my count, and just loads of credit to our to Angela Mills and and Sam Giffen and others who have helped through this project, through this event, plus the event that's going to happen on Wednesday at the groundbreaking of the Jones Library. Angela is helping out with the ancestral bridges on Saturday. Our team is really doing an amazing amount of work, and we're looking forward after the 3rd of July to having some downtime where they won't have events they have to prepare for or carry chairs to or whatever else they have to do. So, but I just want to just note the kind of the level of commitment and work that they're doing on weekends most often.
Absolutely. Any questions of the town manager? Pat, you have your hand up. I don't think you mean that. Councilor Ette?
I'm reading that the town had launched this youth entrepreneurship summer program, and it's supposed to end with a pitch challenge. I just wanted to know if there's a way for councillors to be made aware of that challenge, so those who may be able to be there.
Oh, sure. I can ask the Recreation Department to invite you all. That'd be great. Great idea. Thank you for offering.
Okay. Any other questions of the town manager? Town councillor comments. President's report, I have one coming on June 30th, another July 21st, unless I combine it with August 18th. I mentioned some highlights of the conversation with Senator Comerford and Representative Dom earlier, and that's about it for that. Any questions at this point? Future agenda items. We meet on the 30th, at which point we will have a Hickory Ridge update. We will take up the Pauley Village Place, which we delayed off of this one. Perhaps the ABRC charge will be ready. Are there other and we assume there may be some more committee appointments, and we will act on planning board. Are there any other anticipated items that councilors can tell me about at this time? Councilor Haneke.
You said the letter would be on the agenda?
Letter, yes. Letter to the school committee. Thank you. Anything else? Councilor Walker?
Yeah, I think during public comment, there was mention of the CSSJC looking to meet with the council. So is it possible to get that on a future agenda soon?
I'll look for the opportunity, but one of the things that we did agree on, and the town manager continues to do, and that is provide us with regular updates of the 7 action items that the council has agreed to off of CSSJC. And that was supposed to be the sufficient item for this. If the council wants a meeting with CSSJC, I'm more than glad to schedule that. But the goal for a long time has been that the town manager report on the updates of where we are on those 7 items.
I think considering that they requested to meet with us, I would like to honor that request. And also seeing that the town manager doesn't regularly attend their meetings, I think it would still be helpful.
Okay, thank you. On July 21st, perhaps we'll have the Transportation and Parking Commission. We would also have the ZBA and hopefully Finance Committee. And then one of the things I want the council to seriously think about is whether or not we really need the August 4th meeting. We don't need to decide that tonight. We are meeting on August, I guess it's the 18th. Okay. Are there councilor comments? Yes, Kathy Shane.
I made a decision to make this comment, so I don't want to turn down my decision. I just wanted to take a couple minutes as we close tonight to announce that after 7 years, I've decided I will not be running again for council. I hope to be able to continue to stay involved by serving as a resident member of the Finance Committee. I think it was very wise that that was part of the charter, and I think we should have it on other committees. It has been a joy and a privilege to have been the chair of the Elementary School Building Committee. I've learned so much since first deciding to run, and I've tried to serve the whole town well as my district well. I'm going to miss working with all of you and serving as chair of finance and chair of JCPC. This has not been an easy decision for me, but for me, it's the right decision and it's time to step down. And I just want to say it tonight because it's an opportunity for people to take out papers. It's the first week of July. And in District 1, I wanted to give people a heads up. There's an opportunity that there'll be a slot opening it up. So thank you for your attention.
Okay. Are there any other councillor comments? Seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn and seek a second.
Second.
I moved to adjourn, and now it's a second. We'll move to a roll call vote. On the motion to adjourn, we'll start with Councillor Walker. Believe it or not, we've made it all the way through once.
Yeah.
Councillor Walker.
Yes, thank you.
Pat DeAngelis.
Aye.
Devlin Gothier.
Aye.
Councillor Ette.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer's aye. Councillor Haneke.
Aye.
Bob Hegner.
Aye.
Councillor Lord. Aye. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Councillor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Andy Steinberg.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
The meeting's adjourned. It is 10:46.